The 2017 Greece trip began in the sprawling city of Athens. Quite a large and impressive city, but in the middle, it's full of all sorts of wonderful archaeological sites like the Acropolis. With the Parthenon sitting up on top, it's really quite an amazing view. In front of the Acropolis is the Propylaea. These are the steps that lead up to the Parthenon. And then there's also the Temple of Nike. On top of the Acropolis sits the Parthenon, really a very beautiful building. And our guide was able to explain to us the really wonderfully detailed architecture behind it, with all the curved lines that are actually designed to help act against the tendencies of your eyes to see things.
Parthenon makes me realize just how beautiful man's work can be.
This is the Temple of Hephaestus, which is down in the Forum area. It's actually quite well preserved, while the Parthenon has been destroyed over the years. This is a beautiful little piece, actually Cycladic art from 2 to 3000 BC. It looks a little bit like Homer with his harp. This is the Charioteer, a wonderful piece that was actually found at the bottom of the sea, but they were able to restore it, and really quite a lovely bronze figure. Here we are at the Corinthian Canal. There's a large bridge going over it, and you can sit there and watch the boats go underneath this very interesting passageway. This is the ruins on top of the hill next to Corinth. It's called the Corinth Acropolis. These are the ruins down inside the ancient city of Corinth, most likely ruins the Apostle Paul himself saw when he visited. This is the best preserved of the ancient Greek theaters. This is the Theater at Epidaurus, and its acoustics are so good you can even hear a rustling piece of paper down at the bottom, all the way up into the highest seats. We are also able to do a little singing here and hear the delightful acoustics ourselves. Outside of the city of Nafplio is the Palamidi fortress. This was built by the Venetians and went back and forth between the Venetians and Turks, but eventually was conquered by the Greeks, and it's really quite an impressive fortress up on top of the hill. So, Kent, tell me, do you think that if you shaved your head and had a beard, that would induce enough courage to attack this fortress with just a spear and sword?
I don't know.
Actually, Kent's dad told me that if I didn't get down before he would, that I'd have to wrestle him at the bottom, and so I videoed myself making a hasty retreat. There's 1,000 steps from the top all the way to the bottom of the Palamidi fortress. And this is a little soccer match we had going in Nafplio one morning. Had a good number of very fine soccer players on the trip this time. This is the city of Nafplio. You can see a little fortress outside the city there in the bay. But it's really quite a lovely city, full of nice shops and gelato shops. This is the fortress out in the bay. There is actually a small restaurant out there, and it's really quite interesting to be able to see. The tomb of Atreus, or tomb of Agamemnon, is one of the most delightful stops we have on the trip. Singing inside of it is really quite wonderful. It's built between 2,000 and 3,000 BC, and the stones are really quite massive. And they, of course, provide a really lovely acoustic as you sing inside there, as all of the sound is contained and comes right back at you. You can hear all the harmonies very nicely. This is the front of the tomb of Atreus, and many of these stones are just mammoth. The ancients saw that they were so large that they actually called them cyclopean walls, thinking that it took a cyclops to actually be able to build such walls. But many of the stones have actually been dragged from over 2 or 3 miles away up these hillsides. It's really very impressive engineering. This is the gate to Mycenaean, what's called the Lion's Gate, and you can see once again the cyclopean walls here and the very large stones that it's created out of. In Mycenae, there's a well, and you can actually go down into that well and see where the water used to gather. Afterwards, we usually go to a very nice restaurant right down below from the Mycenae site. It's always very lovely getting to eat there. The bus is always very comfortable, and though we do lots of walking around during the day at the various sites, the bus and our rides between sites always gives a nice time for socializing and relaxing as we get ready for our next stop. Our guide this year, Kostas, was really quite fine. He's a very good guide, very informative, and really quite captivating with his description of the history surrounding these sites and stories that help illuminate all the various interesting things that transpired at these sites. Springtime is also a really wonderful time of year to travel in Greece. The flowers are out and so much to see.
People were wearing braces in their hands, and during the Roman times these braces are having metal pieces, and imagine if they hit you like this, what happens to your body?
At Olympia, we usually have to stage our own Olympic foot race. This is Miltiades' helmet, the helmet that he actually wore at the Battle of Marathon. And this is a very beautiful bridge that the Greeks have made over the Corinthian Gulf. Most of the European Union countries paid for it, and the Greeks don't seem to be particularly interested in using it. And this is the town of Delphi. Here's our group out on our hotel balconies. Delphi is a really wonderful city. You have quite a large amount of mountainside that the village is built upon, and just looking out over there, you have this really wonderful view of all of the city and the town just sitting there on the side of the hillside. Quite quaint. The site of Delphi, of course, is also very nice, the historical site. You see the Temple of Apollo and the treasury of the Athenians. This is our group gathered before the treasury of the Athenians. This is the Temple of Apollo, where Nothi Self-Tone was written, know yourself. This inscription was very inspirational to Socrates and his philosophy and his desire for self-knowledge. The shot of the ones who do the hard work of this trip. It's the feet. This actually shows the name of Plutarch, one of our great book's authors, a priest at Delphi. And this is the Sphinx that we find in the story of Oedipus, standing outside the city of Thebes. This is the Omphalos, what the Greeks believed to be the center of the world. And this is the Charioteer, one of the most beautiful bronze statues of antiquity. We visited an icon factory and got to see the monk making the icons. Icons are used in Orthodox worship, and having seen them, we had a very good discussion afterwards about the appropriateness of having images in Christian worship. Meteora is one of my favorite sites. It's a beautiful area geologically, but also sitting on top of these beautiful rock formations are these ancient Greek monasteries. And so seeing the monasteries in conjunction with the wonderful geology is really quite a special thing. Not much about ancient Greek civilization here. This is a more medieval Greek civilization, but nonetheless quite a sight to get to see. The rock formations just in themselves are wonderful, but to have these beautiful monasteries perched up on top of them makes for really quite a lovely combination. This monastery is the Grand Meteora, the largest of the monasteries. Here's just a little flyover with the drone showing you some of the geology. A little grass lawn up on top of this high rock. And that's the town of Kalambaka down below. The monasteries are on such high rocks that you're really quite amazed to think of the people who built them. Actually, some workers working on this wall here, it's difficult to think of them just inches from quite a precipice as they work, putting their bricks in. Many of the monasteries have cable cars that go up and down to get people there. Cats are always a lot of fun in Greece as well.
Do you have any more? Let it climb up here.
And here's our group up on top of the Grand Meteora, looking out over the valley below, down towards the town of Kalambaka. Really quite a astounding view up here. And this is the stairway down from the Grand Meteora. Once again, you can see it's quite a number of stairs. The ancient monks did not actually have these stairs. They actually went up on ropes and in baskets. And so we have the luxury of having these stairs to let us get up and down, but for them it was a bit more of an adventure. Some of the stairways actually go right through the rock too. On our last day, we get to take a cruise, and we go to 3 islands, and this is a wonderful way to finish up our tour. Being on the water in Greece, of course, is very much part of what it means to be in Greece, and so spending the last day this way is really quite a nice way to finish up. This is the little town of Idra and the port there. You can see our boat on the left, but all these little houses up on sides of the mountains are wonderful. They just kind of creep up the sides of the mountains, and there's actually no cars on the islands. Everything's either walking or on donkeys, and so it's really quite different from Southern California, and quite happy to say so. Walking around the little seaports is also lovely as well. The shops are nice, and being able to see all the boats in the port is a very delightful thing. This is actually an underwater ruin of one of an ancient Greek city that had its elevation sink over time. It was actually below sea level now, so you can see that wall there is a very interesting thing. This is in the island of Aegina. Aegina is actually one of the larger Greek islands. It's very well known for its pistachios, and really quite a lovely little port city there as well. It's a hydrofoil that was going past us while we were on the island. These boats are really quite fascinating. They're really quite fast as they go up on their foils. Those are the ETS students who were less than socially conscious, got right in with the Greek dancing. There was a fun little band that was playing on the boat, and they had some Greek dancing going, so we got to enjoy that as well. Glad to see the ETS folks are really quite spirited as well.
I think that the cradle of the Greek civilization will always welcome people talking about the mainland or the islands.
Nothing interesting, Diego.
So earlier we were talking about all our different favorite things from the Greece trip, and I wanted to include as much of the Greece trip as I could because I've greatly enjoyed this trip, and I decided, or I figured out that the easiest way to do that was to say that I enjoyed the singing, because we have sung very many places we've sung in. Agamemnon's tomb, we've sung in prisons, we've sung in the subway even.
No, no, Domine, Domine.